The deepening democracy study started before the 2023 election, when we tried to analyze and discuss what we think were the major constraints to free, fair election. To run up to that election, we issued a report on, after election, democracy, elections with democracy. And after that, we have then come back here again last 2 weeks to look at what we are learning from the elections, off-season elections. And our focus has been that INEC, the need for radical restructuring of INEC. We discussed that issue last 2 weeks, and we had various participants discuss on the need for a national action plan on reform of INEC, which will culminate in some kind of Uwe's report, becoming, disbanding and constitutional INEC according to the major recommendation of Uwe's to secure its independence and true neutrality. Now, again, we have been working on the report of that conversation, but we are heading towards the election with the lessons of Edo before us. And we felt it's necessary to really look at Edo again and tell ourselves whether we see something different. INEC last week, I think early this week, said they are going to punish officials who are involved in electoral practices in Edo. I don't know whether INEC views are really that respectable, or whether their views, whether INEC is that credible. But the point is, whatever happened in Edo, INEC did the same promise after 2023 presidential election. INEC said, we've seen the error, we're going to be better. Edo has happened. INEC is also promising to be better. So this dialogue is to look at what happened in Edo and what should be done, and what should be done to secure INEC's confidence in INEC. There are 3 points we want to raise, and that's why we brought people who have the knowledge and experience. First is that the confidence in INEC, not just the commissioners, but also the staff, is at the lowest level. And so, in spite of the protests by some of the parties in Edo as to the partisan nature of the parties involved, there is INEC has consistently maintained those conflicted officials. That's number one. Number two is that we are seeing increasing weaponization of the INEC platform. 2 new nominations for National Commissioner and REC has been made. And these are persons who, for example, the National Commissioner, one of the REC has been someone who has been Administrative Secretary in Lagos State, INEC. The story we are getting is that maybe the new government now wants to use NEC officials, directors in NEC, for the new positions. And these are civil servants who are used to order, obeying, authority, obey the command. That's 1. 2, these are persons who have been part of electoral manipulation for a long period of time. And so it raises question as to, if we don't reconstitute INEC, what kind of INEC are we going to have when most of the officials of INEC, the new commissioners and recs, will be directors and management staff in INEC? So that raises a new challenge, and the political parties are not responding to it. These 2 names are already pending. Some of the persons rumored is somebody who has been REC in Lagos, who has been in Edo to the time of Adam Oshomole, is now being touted as the new national chairman that we appointed of INEC. So the issue around INEC's independence is becoming more worrisome, and that's part of the issue we feel we should consider. 2 is that more reports are coming out from Edo that shows clearly that the reports in IREF are now being, the certified true copies are no longer reflecting the results cited immediately after the election. So we are seeing now that whereas the IREF was, as at the day of election, as at the day election closed, it was very clear there was much discrepancy in IREF. For example, if you look at the declared result by INEC in Edo State, the winner, APC, scored about 291,667 votes, whereas PDP scored 247,264 votes. But the IRF showed, after all the results have been entered, including the 3 that were uploaded days after, showed that it was 266,233 votes for APC and 258,162 for PDP. Now, if you look at that reconciliation, the margin of the difference in IRF was about 8,000 votes, where the difference in, as declared by INEC, was 44,000 votes. Now, if you look again, some of the votes that ought to be cancelled, those who are voting and those not certified by proper accreditation, that margin totally wiped off. At least without any further allegation, it should require some kind of rerun for those areas. Okay. So the point is this: that even today, those who have applied for CTC, what they're being certified to is different from what is already in the IRF. Now the question for us is, how should the court? 2 points now. Election has been declared, winner loser has emerged. How should the courts respond to these alleged absurdities and abnormalities? That's very important. Now, if you look at the past, not much hope we have. But some of us are of the view that, considering the terrain we are entering and the fact that we are seeing increasing loss of confidence in the electoral system, we are seeing also the fact that INEC is getting worse, almost more criminal in their undertaking. How should the courts now respond? Because there are 3 levels. The first level is the level of INEC management of elections. The second level is the level of judicial management of dispute. And so 3 issues that we have looked at. We have looked at all the cases that has gone ahead, and we see 3 problems. First is the issue around uploading of front-loading of petition, which requires that within 21 days, anybody who wants to file a case should file a case, and you must upload the witnesses you want to use for the evidence. Now, what has happened is that INEC, of course, expectedly, some of the officials whose testimony will be necessary are not willing to upload statements before them. So we've seen that in the Kogit's case and several other cases. That's number 1 challenge. The second challenge is, how should the courts view clear evidence of manipulation on the record? So if, for example, the IRF at a particular time showed a particular result, and now later the CTC certified true copy of the result is different from what was uploaded as at the time the election was completed, and even different from what was declared as result, how should the court look at all this evidence? So this is important for us, because we are now entering a period where there's greater desperation, and the country is divided, confused. Poverty, the issues around the economic crisis, the conflicts, terror, violence. The Abuja School believes that deepening democracy will require 3 major steps. First is disbanding INEC, we've said that before, and creating a new INEC. It has a lot of risk, a lot of uncertainty. We can discuss that. 2 is that we must take away the incentive for politicians to try to rig elections, because they know that they can get the full benefit of that enterprise, because courts, the judiciary, will not go far to reverse it. And thirdly, we say that you must have a system of electoral management that is clear, transparent, where results can be determined and the clarity of those results are established, so that everybody knows who has won. So not the one that you go back and wait for INEC to finally give you the result, and then when the INEC issues it, the certified true copy is different from what you saw on election day. So these are the 3 issues we are raising, and these are important for us because of the fact that we are now run down to constitute the new INEC. And from the appointments that we have seen so far, it looks like the new strategy is going to be more dangerous. The previous strategy is to appoint partisan politicians. The new strategy is to appoint faceless INEC staffers whose loyalty has been guaranteed over time, who have no incentive to be independent because they've been part of managing corrupt INEC. So we want to bring it on board to discuss that. So far, we heard this as a story, but we have seen 2 new appointments that reflect this pattern. And the idea here is that the next INEC commissioners and chairman would be either former directors of INEC or serving INEC management staff who has been trusted along the line in delivering these long cases of manipulated election. And so I would think at this point there's need for the leading politicians to come on board on a real conversation. We are working to an one-to-one. INEC has promised heaven and delivered hell in the past. They are saying they have learned their mistakes. Ondo will be better. But these are not mistakes. These are deliberate, effort to falsify things. You can't have a different result on your IRF and then you declare a different result on your, then after that you have a different result issued at CTC. Those are not mistakes. If it was logistic, that's mistake. Those appear as strategic, deliberate, institutional manipulation. And so what are the strategy for INEC to correct these errors in Ondo as they are promising? Yesterday, I think the Peace Committee has gone to go to the rituals of peace again. I think either they did it today or I think it's today they're doing it, but they traveled yesterday. Bishop Kuka called me when he was going. Now, after all this routine, we'll come back and have another press conference on Ondo because the very structure of this manipulation is still there. So this is really why Abuja School thinks that we'll continue this conversation to create a national action plan. And let me say it clear. If you don't do justice in a Doe case that's glaring, there's no guarantee that there will be justice in Ondo or justice in 2024. I'm happy that some of the people who observed these elections are here. There's no doubt about the data is clear. There was high-level manipulation of those results. Let's not forget the vote buying or the printing of result sheets. Even the results declared are different from the ones available now. The ones on the IRF were different from the ones declared. Many of the places where there are double, double vote, overvoting, that ought to have been cancelled, have now been rectified in the CTC of the results. That's not the way to run it. So that's the essence of our continuous conversation we started last 2 weeks. We focus mostly on how to change INEC. I now want to bring in the dimension that INEC is now being reconstituted again, step by step with these new appointments. While we're talking about disbanding and reconstituting, they have started appointing, and the new strategy is to appoint staffers, former directors, people who have low profile. So you can't even say they are partisan, but people who have been programmed to continue the existing process. And that, I think, is a danger. I think that's my intro for this conversation. So what we want to do is that we want to look at the various dimensions of this crisis. The ultimate idea is what can we do practically to change the direction and the narratives of this of electoral reform in Nigeria. And last point is that I'm afraid with what's going on in the country today and our neighbors in West Africa, it seems that we don't have much luxury to wave away concerns for 2023 election, 2027 election. And again, we saw what happened in 2007. As soon as the election tribunal, Supreme Court finished the issue, mechanism was put in place mainly for electoral reform. But this time around, somehow there is a silence among all the little political parties around electoral reform. Is it a good or bad omen? That's really the problem. Is it that we trust that the institution will work itself out clear, or is it that the politicians no longer care about electoral reform? That's the point. How are you? Welcome. Austin, I know you. First question, ask yourself, why should collection of results really happen in West Africa? Results are completed at the polling units.
Yeah.
That's the voting. you sign off, or why you have agents are there. They sign the result and upload. If I was a judicial officer, and you bring me a result from the polling unit, and you bring me a result collated, I would discount the collected results. Because the essence of electoral jurisprudence is to enable the voters vote. So why is that Nigerian judges now empower bureaucrats? So what we are doing now is that transferring power from citizens to bureaucrats in INEC, the so-called staff, INEC staff and officials, to now decide result. So see what happened in Edo, for example. Once the data has been uploaded, then they start collation, and they start fighting. That's the reason why the governor could storm into the place. That's the reason why they could drag the governor out. Why would anybody storm into the place if the results that are released real time on the IRF and the world can access it? Look at it. We talk about US election. Oh, they conceded. Why would you concede? As the votes are arriving, the ballots are being declared, the leaks are being noted. People are seeing that, okay, as they are counting the thing, people are already knowing that this is what the person has. So there's nothing like after the whole thing has been done. Then you wait for INEC officials to take the one by one and accept. Someone will say this is not good, throw it away. Someone will not use bio. I can show you now, there's some of the results I have here are mutilated. Maybe 50, they will add 2 to 50, go 250. They sign name. 10. Or 0 or 5, they'll add 1 and 1 here. It becomes 151. So the question is, can we accept all this? And are we sure that we can come out of this? It's good to be pessimistic, this will not work, but at the same time, the consequence, because I've heard politicians say that they now know what to do. So first, we're going to see violence increase. INEC will now concentrate power to itself and then bid for the highest bidder. So, and that's what deceives people. So when the ruling party is defeated in one election, people have hope. So it's like tantalizing. They give you something to make you have hope that it's possible. Then you double your effort. So we are coming to a point where I think it's actually easy to reform this if there could be national consensus. For example, I agree with you. Even if we leave the constitutional amendment of changing INEC appointment and focus on procedure. Now, why should Electoral Act not be radical and clear enough to provide a simple way that once results have been, votes have been counted at the polling unit and signed off and uploaded, that's the result INEC will use, the courts will use. And make it clear that the courts can accept evidence from anywhere. Now, you restrict it, you not say that before you get an evidence, even subpoenaed evidence, you must have front-loaded that statement before. At the time you are filing the thing. 21 days is what you have. In that 21 days, INEC will stonewall, not give you access to any document. You get a court order. We saw in this Edo case. They were writing every day. We've got a court order. INEC will not comply. Maybe last minute, 2 days. Then you rush the application, submit. Then you build evidence, and the court says, those evidence, they are true, but you should have front-loaded the statement of that witness the first day you are filing this case. So I think that MBS met yesterday, NEC. Of it, I couldn't get a flight. I had a ticket, I have no flight. I was supposed to be there as a member of a leader of one of the sections, one of the committees. And the point is that, is it now time that the legal practitioner will not say, there are 2 stages. Yes, we don't want to judicialize the election, but at the same time, the essence of judicial review is that judges themselves must now be able to stay apart from this conspiracy and try to push through the reform by saying, at our own end, this is justice. We'll look at the real results, real time. We'll not look at results you have cooked after the voting. Because I don't see why a judge should accept a result that's different from the result that was declared at the venue 3 days after. Then you change it. Because there's no, you see, INEC does not have power to amend the results. The power given to INEC under Section 67 or so is the act to reject results that were not in line with the voting. Yes.
Okay, so that's where there's complication.
Yeah.
In fact,
there's some problems. Using Edo now, it's okay. What happened in Edo? how can we avoid it? What lessons flow from it? So, but I like the conversation, the issue you mentioned about orientation. I think Madam will say also about something about that. I'm a vice chairman of the Institute of Ethics and Professionalism, and we are working together with them, Abuja School, to help shape, maybe mainstream some ethical training, in the hope that if we can't take over power, those who are in power maybe can be taught to learn better. The Plato's crisis of saying philosophers become king. But if philosophers cannot be king, maybe we can make philosophers out of kings. So it didn't work in Athens. I don't know whether it will work here. But the idea is, if we can't take power, if we can't, how you're talking about getting people who would deliver at the local level. If those people can't win, is it possible that those who have already captured power can be, it's like tying the giant, use process, procedure to tie their hands, so that they cannot do much evil, and maybe change their thinking to do some good. So I am idealist, realist. We are going to be dealing with a world where we can think about options, but we can't have all the solutions. And again, it's not our job. We shouldn't think that to get a solution, we must solve everything, micromanage to make sure that only people who are good are elected. No. If we take a system that is fair and strong enough, yes, that system may create a bad leader. Just to be clear. So nothing says that if a electoral system is free and fair, only the wise one will win. Yes. The foolish man can win. Yes. So I won't be bothered to solve all the problems, so that the man who is councillor, governor, president is a wise, honest man. That's not the kind of thing I will kill myself for.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that. My name is Paul.
We party for like 2 years. We have provided support, youth support. But at the end of the day, it ended up nothing. Political parties has a clause in their constitution that talked about waiver. Yeah. If you come today, they will put you in. Yeah. So there are political party in all essence, with all due respect, is the weakest link. The weakest. But meanwhile, elsewhere, the US, the UK, and all of the political parties, the strongest. So what method can we use? See, my brother, if you focus on strengthening citizens, which is good, the faith of citizens has been lost. Even you in this room, many of us in this room. Truly, how many of us voted in the 2023 election? It starts from this room, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. No, I'm just saying maybe 2 or 3 or 4. I'm not saying. We can take, if you want us to take statistics, we'll take in this room. Of course, I didn't vote because my poll worked. But what I'm saying is, essence is this: there's a trust deficit. System has failed the people. And until you re-echo that systemic decay to upscale the zeal of the people, if you criminalize vote, people will come and vote and tear the ballot paper and put it inside the ballot box. And waste it because of the anger. I speak like this because I am passionate of the Nigerian state, because I've seen elsewhere. And to end it, with all due respect, back to the political party poll agent, we can take lead from Ghana. Ghana has minimum 78% of turnout of voters. System trust. People will turn out to vote if they know that the system will produce the outcome. Otherwise, people won't turn out. Thank you.
Okay, let me make this point before I round up. We shouldn't lose faith in solving problems. But problems are not solved.
Hold on, please. We're wrapping up.
We shouldn't lose faith in solving problems. But problems are not solved without proper, rigorous understanding of the problems.
Right.
We have 2 problems in this country. One is that we first assume we know the problem, and therefore we say, let's solve the problem. We don't spend time to, even if you know, the reason for conversation is you know more. You hear other versions of the problem. This series is designed to focus on issues. Next one, we're going to have to send ahead the concept paper, so that our conversations will be centered. We are saying that as part of our discussion around electoral management body, we are worried about INEC's role, flowing from what they have done in Edo. So the question we're asking ourselves is, what can we do to guarantee a more fair efficient electoral management. We have said that you cannot have INEC appointed by the president executive and expect that they're going to be that independent. Now we are seeing a emerging trend where INEC is now, new INEC will be probably made up of directors, ex-directors, civil servants who have worked in INEC. And that poses more danger. We've seen the 2 nominations. We are hearing a story that one of the former REC at Lagos, Edo, is going to be the chairman. Now, what we are seeing is a complete takeover of the electoral management body in a way that you can't even guarantee any procedure. That's number one. Number two is that we are saying that, like somebody said here, that we should pay more attention to the procedure of electoral management. Make it more participatory, clear, nothing is left for chance. And the ultimate is that results will be declared of the polling unit, transferred electronically, and we know, and we should use collection as a procedure to subvert real results that are harvested at the polling unit. Now, Edo election tells us, now we have seen that the Edo result was declared with result different from IREF. IREF had about 8,000 difference. The result declared was about 42,000 difference. Now, it means that at the minimum, there was no clear winner with all the overvoting, all the results that should have been cancelled. Two, even now, the results for the IREF and the certified true copies are different results. So the question then is, if results are declared and uploaded, and then the certified true copy request is different, how should we ensure that this new slippery slope of incredible results, look at where we're coming from. 2019, you mentioned it, issue was server. 2033, issue was IREF was shut down. Nobody has told us why it was shut. In 2024 with Edo, we are still talking about results being different, posted different results, declared different results, and now tendering different results. So the view of the Abuja school is that the courts now, INEC has done their job in Edo, we are now before the court. How should the judiciary manage this? And it's very clear that the court should have, somebody mentioned the issue about activism, the court should have the courage to reject results that show clear that they are manipulated. The court may not pronounce a winner. The court can remand those results to INEC to take consequential action. Look, I like the word somebody used here. He talked about judicial deterrence. The reason why politicians are now more heroic in manipulating the electoral system, it happened in Edo, it happened in 2027, is that there's no deterrence for electoral offenses and manipulation. If the courts, imagine if the court had nullified 2023 election, for example, without the money politicians have spent, everybody will be careful to rig again. This is my theory. If the courts cancel elections where politicians have spent billions to rig, they will be less inclined to bribe either INEC or police for electoral results, knowing that ultimately those results can be cancelled. So I want to see the court exercise more capacity to second-guess this INEC's manipulated election. If Edo says true, as Kogi said true, as Simo said true, 2027, you can't guarantee participation. You're talking about low voter turnout. Why will voters go? Look at the number who voted in Edo. About 20% of elected voters. Now, it will go to 10% in the future because the moral climate now is that nothing can be done. Yes. They capture INEC, they capture the police. Like I said in the first place, I said the strategy to rig election to win is capture INEC, capture judiciary, capture the security. Now, if this capture is complete because the courts are not cancelling bad results, there will be nobody who will go and vote. So the Abuja school says, like you said, deepening democracy or even consulting democracy in Nigeria will require some institutional revision that allow for some faith. They will start doing the work of deepening democracy. They will start mobilizing citizens. They will start building political parties. If there's total impunity, it was an incentive for parties to care about internal democracy, when they should be thinking about buying the process. Where is the incentive for you to go and educate voters when you know that ultimately outcome depends on who will buy INEC and buy judiciary? We have to break that immunity structure to begin to revise democracy and build support. So the Abuja school will not relent. We are still having this conversation. We agreed the last time to have a small group to look at the National Action Plan. We want to provide a plan that says this is what should be done, this is how it can be done. Yes. We look at the procedure of electoral reform, say this is the one for judiciary, these are steps you can take. This is the one for political parties, these are steps you can take. This is the one for civil society. So that somehow we will escape this prophecy of doom in 2027. So I want to thank everybody for. We are trying to create, okay, that's a power problem. But you can structurally mitigate that power problem. If, for example, your friend's continuation does not depend on reappointed by or whatever, probably he would have listened to you and stick out his neck to do the right thing. So what I say is that somebody who's appointed in a particular way has more resilience and immunity, so to say. It doesn't guarantee, because our social factors, cultural factors can make people voluntarily enter into captivity. Because there are people who have tenure, judges, for example, who may not be the good, but they will voluntarily chop money. But it's possible that if somebody is appointment is based on a different metric, that people who emerge will be less in bed with political actors and more possibly help us in this conception of power. So it's not a zero. It's not like, okay, once we bring these guys who are independently appointed, they will suddenly become moral champions. But it's like maybe the structural changes may help them withstand this kind of pressure.
Yes, in a way, I agree with you.
Some of us went against it then, and we said let it be NJC based on waste report. But today you also agree that waste NJC is on. So at what point who should be the appointed power? I've come to the final conclusion. Maybe it's not yet final. That we must put strategy in place, not to look at the people running the affairs of election, but to look at the process that turn up results for the elections. What am I saying? It doesn't matter who is INEC chair. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who is the rec of INEC. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the people become the owner of the electoral process. Just as the election came out from the United States, even before it was officially announced, for your information, it has not been officially announced. The US election is not officially announced, but we already, because until Congress meet and there's a presentation of the Electoral College and there's an approval, it's a process. It's a process. But the people conducted the election. And how will the people conduct the election? By putting systems in place that when election holds in polling unit 1, the results of polling unit 1, it's not just by way of paper alone. People have criticized electronic transmission of results. Because of, it's okay to criticize electronic result because electronic transmission of results because of the possibility of hacking. But I have an alternative. There is no way, as already alluded by the convener, that if you have an INEC chairman, even though you sack all of these national commissioners, you sack them today, and you appoint us in this room, there will be error. That is when you start saying, see, Dr. Sam Amadi, he has changed. He has not changed. There are forces. How will someone like a Taisolari eventually fail in a failed bank, in the People's Bank? There are systemic challenge that needs to be addressed, and you need systemic solution, not the people. I've taken my position away from the people to systems, and you can call it system theory. And what am I talking about? As we head to future election, not although will not solve what I'm going to propose, because the system is still the system now. As what presents to us an opportunity is the electoral reform. We need a huge organizing, the convener leading all of us, taking it that we need to reform the election result process. And how do I mean? We already have electronic means in our electoral act. Unlike in the 2015, where there was no smart card written in the electoral act. Now we have technology embedded in our act, which means there's a legal form. So we have a beavers. And the beavers' work is to snap the result sheet of the Form C8A at the polling unit level and then upload that for the people to see. We thought we have gotten to a level where we can rest, but it's not yet, aluta continua. It's not yet to roll. But what am I saying in essence? We need a system that has an electronic voting and transmission of results. But there's a caveat. If you go to collect money at a POS machine, you get a receipt, true or false? You get a printout. That printout becomes your ballot paper. You have that ballot paper stick into the ballot box. After the election is over, the polling is over, we tally both the electronic and the paper, the ballots. When it agrees, you send the one electronically. You can send it to a portal that shows to everybody in the world. You don't need human error. I tell you, the greatest challenge in our electoral system is the collation process. It is an opaque system that we cannot resolve in this room or this year. Why I say it is this. When polling happens at the polling unit, that result can be changed at the collation point. Those who voted are no longer there. And you ask me how? If there's an error, just one error, that result from the polling unit can be classified null and void. It is in a legal regime. It's allowed. It's legal. So where there are differentials in the number of ballot paper issued and ballot paper used, where there are differentials, the returning officer at the ward collation level can declare that result invalid and push it aside. Whereas there's a party already winning, who are thought they had won. That result is no longer added. There's another side of it. Today, INEC has actually dropped some, I don't want to speak about some legal issues around the CTC done by our friend, but it's also that there are evidence that suggests that INEC had downloaded or removed certain results on the IRF, make some correction and uploaded it. It is not the first time. It happened in Edo 2020.
It happened in Edo 2024.
It happened in Edo 2024. So you just go, because there is no system in place or no policy in place to check what can be removed and re-uploaded. If we don't put those in place, we are going nowhere. But I'm not even asking for that processes now. Let's forget about that process. Get the results and the polling unit, hard copy, collect normal collation, APC, PDP, ABGA, Labour, do all the collation, go on the electronic one and do your tabulation. It electronically tabulates. And when that is done, you press the send in the presence of everybody, recognizing that the result sheet from EC8A agrees with what is to be sent, and you snap and you have a valid result. So the one, no error of manipulation, no error of tabulation. It will reduce the cost that we spend on elections. Let me quickly give you a metaphor before I move on. In 2019 election, of course, 2023 election, you can do the math. Particularly 2019 election, there were over 80 million registered voters. And INEC will usually print over 80 million, let's say 100 million. And those ballot papers are currency level ballot papers with some features, security features because of theft or manipulation and all of that. If you look at the results of the 2019 election, the total number of people who voted, cancelled, rejected, were less than 30 million. In all essence, we burnt about 70 million ballot papers. Imagine that one ballot paper costs 10 naira. Do the maths. We literally burnt 10 naira times 70 million sheets. Whereas this country is suffering educationally, health-wise, and all sectors. And yet we spend huge amount of money on election that is disputed. We've got to reduce the cost of election. We've got to make the process in a way that is seamless. We've got to have a dashboard that tells us who is winning. We don't have to rely on one individual called returning officer or scope at the state level who determine the cost of all our voting. At the end of the day, sir, we would have reduced judicial impunity, in which case, like Jonathan said, that the people no longer vote. The judiciaries are not the one voting. We have seen that again and again. We must find a way. I've already proposed. I know my proposal will have some defects.